Hi, my name is John Brink. You're watching A History of the BC Forest Industry. Hi, thank you for joining us today. Today we have a guest that is a very interesting guest to us from Northern British Columbia, from Mackenzie. It is the Mayor of Mackenzie, Joan Atkinson. Thank you for joining the show, Joan.
Thank you very much, John. I very much appreciate the invitation to participate.
So things have been a challenge, to say the least, and especially currently in the Mackenzie region, and we'll be talking about that quite a bit during this show. And but I want to know a little bit more about you. And are you from British Columbia, or where did you originate?
I relocated to British Columbia in 1997. I was born and raised in Northern Ontario, and then I spent from 1984 to 1997 in 3 locations in Manitoba, 3 different communities. And in 1997, we moved out to Mackenzie because my husband, who is now a retired forest professional, wanted to work for industry. He had always been a government employee for the governments of Ontario, Manitoba, and wanted to have an opportunity to work on the other side of the table. So that's what brought us out to British Columbia in 1997. And this is where we are, and I am not leaving this community until I move to the next life.
Excellent. Now, you have your family, your children. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yes, so I do have 2 grown sons, and they are both very involved in the forest industry themselves. Because they had early exposure with their father. Jim worked for Finley Forest Industries when we first moved to Mackenzie as superintendent, and was responsible for the area at the north end of Williston Lake. So my children were introduced to the industry at a young age and spent many summer breaks and March breaks. While other children were going to Disneyland, they were going to logging camps. And I did ask them a couple of years ago, do you ever feel that you were robbed? We didn't take you to some warm, exotic place. And they looked at me like I was crazy. Like, going to a logging camp with Dad was way more fun than Disneyland could have ever been. And as a result, both of our sons work in the industry. My oldest son is a graduate. He has his technology diploma from Vancouver Island University in forestry, and recently completed his degree in natural resource management. And he's a forester in training with Industrial Forestry Services in Prince George. My youngest son has worked sort of boots on the ground since his early 20s, when he came back from college and worked for industrial logging for a number of years, Industrial Forest Products, and currently works for East Fraser Fiber, Parallel 55 in Mackenzie in the scale shack, and working towards becoming a scaler. So both of my children and my husband are very involved in the forest industry. And at times like this, when you need to have a pretty solid understanding of the industry, I'm very grateful that when I go to a meeting with forest professionals or government, that I understand the lingo and the acronyms and what TSR means and AACs and that sort of thing. So certainly my family's background in forestry has prepared me well for this job.
Yeah, uniquely well, really, right? So, and then once you got to Mackenzie, and then again you became involved fairly early in politics in Mackenzie, because you ran for city council.
Yes, I was elected in a by-election in 2007, and for 1 year, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity to test the waters. I've always been involved in any community that I lived in, and got in on the by-election, and then I have been on council ever since, re-elected a couple of terms as councillor, and then I was the deputy mayor from 2014 till 2018. and then submitted my name in 2018 for the role of mayor, and no one ran against me. And I like to think it's because the community had faith in my abilities and not that nobody else wanted the job. So it's been a challenging time, but I say that this is the job in my career that has paid me the least, causes me the most stress, but I enjoy it the most.
But prepared you uniquely for what would follow, which means today, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it prepared you for what happened, right?
Yes.
Now, the other thing about just something that I'm not familiar with is that how did you become deputy mayor? I didn't know there were such individuals.
Yeah, so all municipal councils have opportunities. A mayor always assigns a deputy mayor portfolio to one of his councilors. Okay. Many councils rotate that position. When Pat Crook decided to run for mayor, he told me that if he was elected, he wanted me to be his deputy mayor because he knew that I aspired to become the mayor, and that provided that opportunity that I went to meetings. I was more involved. I met with him, with Pat and our CAO weekly, so I was always up to date with what was going on. So it certainly prepared me well. I also want to recognize the previous mayor, Stephanie Killam, who was a great mentor to me when I first got on council. So Mayor Killam and Mayor Crook prepared me well for this role.
Now, if I kind of look back, Joan, the Mackenzie background right to early 70s and before has had a lot of challenges all the way from when you initially were elected as councillor. We had FFI, we had SLOCAN, we had BCFP, we had Canford, then Conifex, we had Pope and Talbot, we had Abitibi, and then Paper Excellence, and on and on and on. And a lot of different owners passed through Mackenzie and built a modified infrastructure. And so even in 2007, when we were in the depth of the den, what I call recession edging on depression, it was a real challenging time.
Yes, certainly. And Mackenzie has been referred to as sort of the community that has most casualties to large corporations. And I think that clearly indicates the challenges that our community and our timber supply area have to deal with. We are a very large timber supply area, the fourth largest district in the province. Mackenzie is located at the southern portion, and so the large expanses and the distances that companies have to haul logs to be manufactured makes it a very expensive place to operate. And I think that's one of the things that has to be looked at as we move forward. This community was built specifically to support the forest industry. That's the reason we're here, incorporated in 1966. And since that time, the last 54 years, there have been many ups and downs. And I think it's time that our community gets their fair share and their fair recognition and be allowed to have a voice on how the industry moves forward, because it has such huge implications on our community. We are dependent on this industry, and the people who live here have supported that industry for the last 50 plus years. So we are now looking for support from the companies who currently own facilities in this community and the government, who has to provide the right environment in which rural communities can flourish and grow.
Okay, so then if I kind of look back at Mackenzie, it is as you indicated, the fourth largest TSA, which means timber supply area. That's a piece of territory of the working forest designated to that particular region and called the TSA. One of the largest ones is south of it is the Prince George TSA, which bounds bounders up against the Mackenzie TSA. The uniqueness of both Prince George and the Mackenzie TSA is that because of location, the lake and the difficulty of accessing a lot of that forest tends to be higher cost even than already fiber being at a high cost and being one of the issues within the shuts and the closures and all of the other things. Mackenzie is probably even higher than other regions would be. That has always been a challenge, but the timber, the volume of timber is there. The region, although recognizing that it is high cost, is still one region that has a lot of potential in terms of manufacturing.
That is correct, John. We do have still have a robust timber supply in Mackenzie, but today's climate, everybody wants a piece of that pie. And you brought up the Williston Lake. That has been a blessing in some ways for our community, but it's also been a huge threat at times when BC Hydro notifies us that they may have to draw down Williston Lake because they need the power, the hydro for other parts of the province. So that means that companies often have to accumulate large inventories of wood because they may not be able to move that wood down the lake. So they are harvesting and paying stumpage on that wood that they may not actually manufacture for 12 to 18 months. So they are carrying that huge overhead for those dues that they have paid to the province to get that wood accessible to them when Williston Lake is not working in their favor. So that is just another huge, insurmountable, it seems sometimes, struggle that our community has, is the fluctuations of Williston Lake. And that is very unique to the interior forests, that Mackenzie is the only community dealing with that.
So looking at this then, Joan, we recognize that the volume of timber is there, the land base is there, the potential is there, but it's higher than higher cost already. And at the same time, if we have large companies or any company working there, and that has been a really challenge in terms of a number of other factors, right? The one of them being the pine beetle epidemic. Mackenzie region not quite affected as much as some of the other interior were in regards to the species mix, but the other one has been spruce beetle. It has affected the AAC, and obviously within the province a lot of capacity. We had too much capacity, not enough fiber to feed it. And then the other one has been, other components have been the market, the pricing, the stumpage system, and all of those cumulative have created what I would call a perfect storm for the industry. And now it becomes a question of, everybody recognizes that there are issues in or cost drivers in the system that are not right and are not reflective of what they should be. One of them goes directly to stumpage and the recognition that the cost in your region is so high, and only can where mills can operate unless prices are at a certain level, right?
Yes, and that's exactly right. So I think there has to be better cost recognition from government. As I say, a lot of logs come from the north end of Williston Lake. So those logs are being moved 300 and 400 kilometers to a mill for processing. And working in this large TSA, there are certainly lots of overhead for those companies. And some of those costs are not recognized at all. And I, for instance, if somebody up in the Ospika area of the TSA, which means you drive over the top end of Williston Lake and back down on the east side of it, if a large piece of equipment breaks down up there, they might be bringing in a specialized mechanic from Prince George, and it's going to take him 12 hours to get there. And if he arrives there and doesn't have the right part, but even that extra travel cost, those things are not recognized by government as one of the extenuating circumstances that drive up the log costs in this area. So there has to be better recognition for the costs incurred running camps up north. That's not easy. Hauling groceries on dirt roads, 200 or 300 kilometers up gravel road. So that all those extra layers of cost have to be recognized by government to make this a little more economical for companies who want to operate in our timber supply area.
So that being said, Joan, then, the way I see it is that there is a crisis and an immediate problem that needs attention. That means that all the mills are shut down in the Mackenzie region. A lot of people out of jobs, and they are desperately looking at what's going to happen to our fiber, what's going to happen to our operations, what's going to happen to our future. Those things have to be addressed. Now, there was some good news. Conifex has announced that they will restart their operations on July 6th. That's positive news. Likely, I know Ken Shields quite well, and they are good operators. Obviously, lumber prices have come up substantially in the last month or so, bringing prices closer to around the $450 two and better prices. Mm-hmm. That would give mills again some potential of at least break even or do better than that. Hopefully, yes. That with the announcement from Conifex, maybe Paper Excellence that is still considering options, and then you have been constantly in negotiations with the main stakeholders, the government, the operators, and Canfor still has a mill there that they are obviously also looking at. Where do we go from here? Everybody recognizes, but I believe we need more than this. So we need to, right now, we have to fix the current problem that gives some hope and expectation that, the jobs are starting slowly to come back, even if it was the help of the market. Hopefully, duties, 21% of the duties, that will be reduced hopefully in August. That gives hope and viability, but it does not solve the Mackenzie problem in terms of the mid to long term. And I know you are thinking about that very much in terms of, okay, where do we go? What does it look like 5 years from now? Because we don't want to go through the whole thing again, over and over and over again, because it does not build confidence. And that means that what we have to address is the pricing of timber in that particular region, recognizing the higher cost. I believe MPS, the market-based pricing system, is flawed. It does not, in the way it is now implemented, does not serve anybody's purpose, because what was meant to be to reflect prices, it does the opposite and must be addressed. It's not the blame of anybody in particular, government, but this likely is the time where government has to be a party to it and saying, okay, how do we recognize this? How do we make it work? How do we create stability and some confidence for investors to come in and to, again, invest in the longer term?
Exactly. We do not want to keep reliving the same history, and that's what our community feels like, that we have a economic downturn every 10 to 15 years, and the current government did reach out to communities, and it was the Premier announced in April of 2019 the Interior Forest Sector Renewal Policy Engagement, and our community was the second in the Interior to participate in that, and that was July the 23rd of 2019. We had that session in Mackenzie. It carried out through all of the Interior communities, was done late last fall. My understanding is there is a what we have heard document has been prepared to government, but that as of today has not yet been released to the communities that participated. So we are a year since that process started. It has been my understanding, ready for distribution for a number of months. So I think government has to let us know and be a little proactive. We're trying to figure things out. So if they provided us with that venue to come together and let government know why things weren't working, but things seem to have stalled, and now is not the time for anything to do with the forest industry in this province to be stalling, because the industry is in crisis across the entire province. We are not the only casualty. We certainly are a big casualty right now, but if you look at Vavenby and Fort St. James, there's been lots of communities, McBride, Valemont, all those communities had proud forest histories, and now it's gone away. That industry has been decimated in their community. So government has to, if they provide the venue for communities to tell them what's not working, they have to get back to us on what they heard and what they plan to do about this, because we need action and we need long-term planning, so we are not doing this, as I say, every 10 to 15 years, reliving the mistakes.
So would you agree then, Joan, and obviously you do, in terms of, obviously we got a crisis right now, the market is helping to make it, that these companies are not bleeding cash right now, if in the way the prices are. It's not to, at least hopefully give like Visconifex the ability to restart, hopefully paper excellence between getting fiber from there. Maybe Canfor is considering something, I don't know, but in any event, that does not solve the problem. But what we have to do now more than ever before is reconsider forest policy as it relates to pricing of fiber, because we are the highest cost producers in the world and we are not competitive. And even some of the other companies, the larger companies, Westphalian, Canfor, Conifex, and a lot of other ones are investing in other regions, not because they don't want to be here, but simply we are not competitive. And that's a problem that affects all of us. And I believe now is the time to start addressing those issues in a way that, in recognizing what changed. And then we made the changes or the BC Liberals made the changes in 2003, doing the Forest Revitalization Act, that removed appurtency and changed the small business program for secondary manufacturers into BCTS, that really has not worked effectively. So, but we have to go deeper into starting at the forest, invest in the forest. Why are we not growing as much or more fiber per hectare than Sweden does? Why are they employing more people than we do on a per cubic meter basis? And and I believe then at the same time, but we have to look at, for now we have to get things going that gives hope, and then start addressing those particular issues, starting right from pricing, ownership. Should tenure be area-based? Should it be volume-based? It's now volume-based. How do we create more of an incentive to invest? And then the other part, and we're going to have to do more of these interviews because we can only kind of cover so many things. But the other one that I believe we have to look at 5-10 years from now, we have to invest in the workforce that will work in the mills that of the future, including the ones in the new ones and the ones in your area. Need to make new products for new markets and need new skill sets that we today do not have. And so I've been involved with the College of New Caledonia in industry, including people like Canfor and other industry partners, into building a center of excellence where we create an infrastructure that will develop those new skill sets, develop new products for new markets, develop infrastructure that will allow us to introduce new technologies like electronic scanning, robotics, all the things that we have to do to develop, so that people come from far and wide, as they did in the past, to look at our industry to learn from it, and then again become a world leader, including all the regions and the inequities that are now in the system, all the way from pricing of timber and ownership of timber. How do we level the playing field so that they are not constantly caught between crises?
I couldn't agree more, and that's what has to happen, the long-term planning. We have to fix what we can right now to get people back to work, and the Conifex announcement on Tuesday was a very welcome news to this community, but we still have one large facility that will be down on August the 9th, and Canfor is now coming up to 1 year that their mill has been curtailed. And as you mentioned, I'm hoping that the lumber prices that have risen, the lumber tariffs that have been greatly reduced, especially for Canfor, that's the company that has enjoyed the biggest reduction, and then stumpages dropping on July the 1st. So those three things I'm hoping will give Canfor the push to restart their mill in this community. Our community is the model of good log utilization when, you know, from the layout in the bush to the harvesting, the logs coming into Mackenzie to our sawmills, the residuals going to our pulp mill, our cogeneration plant, our value-added facilities. So we had it, we had a good model, but when one player pulls out of that, then it has the domino effect, and that's exactly what our community is feeling now.
Exactly. And with you, the captain on the bridge, you know, I have confidence that, you know, the things will happen in Mackenzie that will happen not only in the immediate crisis with the cooperation of duties and markets, but also in terms of then staying on the bridge and saying, okay, let's now address the issues. Where do we go from here? 5, 10, 20, have the communities in Northern BC, as you have been a leader, together with you know, the mayor of Prince George, Vanderhoof, Quanell, work together and say, we have to have more ownership in this, we have to be more involved in it. And together with First Nations is going to be a major, major partner. Looking forward to, you know, rebuilding the industry so that, including developing the skill sets so that we change from where we are today. I thank you for being my guest today. I would love to have you back soon and to talk about where do we go from here.
Okay, thank you very much, John. I like I say, I really appreciate you reaching out. I think this story has to be told, and it's not just a Mackenzie story, it's a rural British Columbia story, and we all have to work harder to support the communities that have supported the industries that have been in our communities.
And collectively, we can solve this problem in this crisis as well.
Yes, I firmly believe that.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching our show today. It was an interesting show, especially in the areas where there may be critical issues that are being discussed. And watch us again next week.